So,
what's trending?
Bridging your Catholic faith with your everyday life. You're listening to Trending with Timmerie on Relevant Radio.
It's our weekly happy hour here on Trending, and if you are a regular here with us on Trending, you know Monday's happy hour, Thursdays are marriage hour, so stay tuned. It's an action-packed week ahead, and today we have two guests, one of whom will talk about what it means to joyfully live out your Catholic faith throughout the day-to-day life and to prepare for Lent. She's the author of this book I love, The Catholic All-Year Compendium, Liturgical Living for Real Life. And I know I've said it to you so many times, we have to live liturgically, and I really mean that. It helps us in terms of dieting, fasting, celebration, joy, and really digging in and appreciating our faith and the tradition and history we have. So Kendra Tierney, the author of that book, will be joining me in just a little bit. And also, perhaps you know a young woman, young adult, who has so many gifts to give the church and has the opportunity to flourish, whether in the professional, non-religious sector or in the religious sector, nonprofit. We're going to be sharing with you about a special program called the Given Forum, where women have the opportunity to participate in this summer leadership forum, to be edified, to have their faith built up so that their gifts can come forward and serve the church both in the religious sector and in a secular way as well. So stay tuned. We'll be discussing that in just a bit. In addition to 5 tips, 5 activities you can do today to help increase your happiness. And guess what? They're free and they're simple. If you want to join the conversation today, the number's 1-888-914-9149, or you can head over to my Instagram story, send me a message, leave a comment on today's post. I would love to hear from you, your questions, your thoughts. Perhaps there's a topic you would like to hear discussed related to happiness. Now, I think there were a whole lot of people who perhaps chose not to watch the Super Bowl this year. After so many politicized elements surrounding sports, I've been surprised to see that people who have found a lot of happiness and relaxation in sports before have decided not to watch anymore. Whether it's because of the take a knee or politicization of the Black Lives Matter element, a lot of people have said it's a no for me. However, I think most of us still like to know what happened during the halftime show or the Super Bowl commercials. And there are 2 commercials in particular that stood out. You might be able to guess the Jeep commercial and the Toyota commercial. So the Jeep commercial, I'm going to go ahead and have this played for you because I think that it hits a nerve for most of the American people today. Listen to this.
There's a chapel in Kansas, standing on the exact center of the lower 48. It never closes. All are more than welcome to come meet here in the middle. It's no secret. The middle has been a hard place to get to lately, between red and blue.
That's a Bruce Springsteen narrating the Super Bowl commercial for Jeep. The commercial continues to go on basically about how we need something in the middle, and they actually refer to a chapel with a cross in it as that middle ground. Talks about this being the way through the darkness, hope, how we need a way of connecting, finding the middle, common ground. And at the end, they put up this slogan, to the United States of America. I found this commercial fascinating because I remember having a conversation with my mom a couple years ago, and we were discussing how it used to be there was a common ground that most people had, whether it had to do with having a family, whether it had to do with having some sort of similar religion, at least believing in God, or perhaps a similar set of morals and ethics. It's just something we don't see today. We don't share a common religion. Many people are choosing not to get married and have families, and we have decided to live in an age where we all define our own reality, relativism. I define my truth, you define your truth. I will tell you what I think's right and the moral code I'll live by. I'll even tell you what I do or don't want to believe about God, whether or not it's true or not. And so here's this commercial from Jeep where they're saying, we need to find middle ground. And they're actually on national television during the Super Bowl pointing to God as that middle ground of faith. That's the one thing that we all can and should have in common. And I think that this resonates with people across the nation who do believe in God, or especially people who maybe are fallen away Catholics. Maybe they believe in a higher power. Maybe they're waiting for God to reveal himself to them. We're at a point in history where we have the opportunity in our conversations and by our example to draw a connection to the fact that the one thing we all have in common is actually a person who created us, loved us, and actually created us with a purpose to be with him, with a purpose in terms of how the body functions. And yes, that covers a lot of the challenging LGBTQ issues. But here's the reality. I'm talking about this during our happy hour, not just because the Super Bowl happened yesterday and there's this great commercial by Jeep that actually talks about God essentially and a cross is in it. I bring this up because people are hungry for something that gives them a guideline in life, a path, a purpose. And so this commercial, I think, will resonate with more people than you think. And who knows? Might be a water cooler conversation where you say, what did you think about that Jeep commercial at the Super Bowl? Speaking of that, there's one other commercial I want to bring up. Man, car dealerships must just be doing a great job with commercials this year. Great market research. They understand, I think, where the American people are. But this one just touches my heart, whether it was meant to be a pro-life story or not. Listen to this story you may be familiar with of Paralympian Jessica Long. Check this true story out from Toyota that they share.
Mrs. Long?
Yes?
We've found a baby girl for your adoption, but there's some things you need to know. She's in Siberia, and she was born with a rare condition. Her legs will need to be amputated. I know this is difficult to hear. Her life, it won't be easy. Mrs. Long?
It might not be easy, but it'll be amazing.
Wow, that is a powerful line. It might not be easy, but it will be amazing. I have seen firsthand, standing in front of the abortion clinic, being in the crisis pregnancy centers, watching our counselors work with women as they come in and out because they think they have no choice but to have an abortion. Or they're told that their child has some type of abnormality, potential abnormality. In fact, many of the screenings that occur when the child's in the womb, they're incorrect. They're not true. The baby continues to develop. I mean, the amount of development that happens in those first months of a baby's life in utero and outside of the womb, there's so many things that could seem so wrong. And that so many people justify ending a child's life through abortion over. Yet here's a story of a Paralympian who was adopted, Jessica Long, and her adoptive mother said it might not be easy, but it will be amazing. Who are we to determine whether or not a person's life will be worth it, whether or not a person's life actually will have purpose or not? Whether or not someone will be happy because they don't have legs, because they have a heart issue, because they can't see, because they have autism or Down syndrome, or any other number of medical diagnoses that for some reason we determine that various health circumstances or circumstances of money and environment determine whether or not a life is worth living. This is a powerful commercial to see for a 23 medal Paralympian, 13 golds. I mean, this is incredible. Jessica Long, even if she didn't win a single one of those medals, Here's a story of someone who was loved unconditionally by her mother before her mother even knew that she would be a 23-time medalist, a 13-time gold medalist of the Paralympics. That's an incredible story. That she chose to love her daughter unconditionally, to accept her just as she was. And this is a reminder, especially if perhaps you have a child who has special needs. Look at the example of someone who said, I love you no matter what. That's powerful. And I think that these are some great commercials that we had at the Olympics, whether you watch the Olympics or not, whether or not you believed it was worth it. Those were two powerful stories I wanted to bring to you to see just where America's at and what's resonated, what's brought people to their knees, what's brought people to tears. If you're just joining me, you're listening to Trending with Timmerie. About 5 years ago, I had the opportunity to participate in a brand new program. It was called the Given Forum. The Given Forum is for young Catholic women, young Catholic leaders in all areas, whether in the nonprofit, religious realm, or in the secular world. This was meant to bolster, build up women to be Catholic in the world. And joining me today is the executive director of the Given Forum to share with you a little bit about their summer program for women that is closing in just a few weeks, or a few days actually, for the application process. Rachel Ullmann, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit more about Given and who can participate.
Hi, Timmerie. Thanks so much for having me. And I'm thrilled to be here, especially since you are a Given alumna. And we are so proud of all you do for the church and the world. And I'm thrilled to talk about the upcoming Given Forum this summer, which will take place June 9 to 13 at the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. And we invite all young adult Catholic women ages 21 to 30 to apply to attend the event. And what's really beautiful about this 5-day experience is that young Catholic women are immersed in a faith formation and a leadership training event, but also they are each paired with a dedicated mentor who works with her for an entire year after the forum as well. And all of our mentors are established women leaders. Many of them are consecrated women religious, and also lay leaders who serve in a diverse, really amazing ways of how women can use their gifts for the Lord in the secular workplace, in the home, in the convent, in so many ways.
I'm so excited. I'm looking at the lineup of speakers, some of which are brand new, but some of whom I had the opportunity to hear when I was there and have even followed for a number of years, such as Sister Maria Theotokos, incredible. I mean, someone who's gone from being a radical feminist to a religious sister and now talking about God and theology. And she's a powerhouse, along with Helen Elvray, who's a regular guest here on Trending. People such as Sister Bethany Madonna. And share with us a little bit about the speakers and kind of fusing together both working in the secular world and in a, say, nonprofit or religious type of situation.
Yeah, I would love to. We really do have an impressive lineup of Catholic female leaders who will be speaking at the forum this summer. And you've mentioned many of them. But the beautiful thing is you're going to see so many options of ways women can live out their gifts in service to the Lord. So you mentioned Sister Bethany Madonna, and we also have Michelle Benzinger, who's a host of the Abiding Together podcast. Gloria Purvis is coming, Colleen Carroll Campbell, Sister Mary Madeline Todd. All of these women, whether lay or religious, they are truly immersed in the gospel, and they are seeking to use the gifts that God has given them uniquely and put them at the service of others. And they are all faithful to the church's teachings, which is something we're really proud of at Given, is that we have Our Lady of Guadalupe as our patroness, and we also bring women leaders together who love of their faith, and they want a network of other women on mission, women who are seeking to be leaders in their specific field, specialty, their talent, right? So all the young women who we invite to apply to come to the forum, they also get to pick a specialty. So we ask in the application process that each woman selects, what's your affinity group? What is it that you believe God has placed on your heart as your gifting? And then you will be able to be in a small group of other women and paired with the mentor who are in that same specialty, that same field of interest. And that's something that really helps narrow the conversation, that all that you hear from all the various women on the stage, but then you can practically apply it to your life and your action plan and what it is that you're going to do tangibly after the forum.
One of the neat moments at the forum when I attended the first one was the panel that would happen one after another, and you'd have, 4 or 5 of the speakers come together. Questions are thrown at them. You're hearing responses having to do with parenthood, mothering, relationships, dating, women in the workforce, women in nonprofit world, and brainstorming big picture ideas and being entrepreneurs. It's an incredible leadership program for women. So if you want to learn more, you can check out thegiveninstitute.com and actually take out it's just giveninstitute.com. We'll link to it on the podcast notes, which you can find at relevantradio.com/trending. Rachel, tell us a little bit more about even some of the skills that are given, such as the listening and psychology skills that are implemented through the program that week.
Yeah, absolutely. We have, in addition to prayer workshops and the keynote speakers, we have leadership training programs that are really specific to things that women need in the workplace or in those leadership roles. And one of the things that we're having this year is a workshop on social styles. So you all know that person maybe in your office or even in your home that's very different from you. And that can be a challenge. It's a challenge to work on a project with them. It's a challenge to love them day to day, right? And so we have an expert coming in who's going to teach us about the different social styles, the different temperaments, the different ways that you work life, and then how you can first identify yours and then identify the ones in the people around you so that you can appreciate them more, but also learn to work with them, even though they can be so different from you. And we also have a workshop on empathetic listening skills, on how to listen to another rather than face someone as you're solving their problem, right?
Awesome.
And that's
workshop.
really important in our mentoring as well.
Yes. And I remember there was actually role play during that workshop when I was there, and I thought it was so helpful. And this was led by a business professional, Stephen Giordano, just did a phenomenal job on teaching it, making you practice it. And so often when we're in the workforce, when we're in nonprofit ministries, serious conversations come up surrounding same-sex attraction, surrounding struggles within the family, abuse, various types of abuse, abortion. And you have to be ready to listen and to know, I don't have all the answers, but I can have both skills and the Holy Spirit's intercession during those conversations to help me along. I would like to hear just a little bit briefly about some of the spiritual components that are implemented throughout the day as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Every day we will have Mass, and we also have prayer workshops that are a part of the leadership training, because it's important that each of these female leaders rely on their faith and their relationship with the Lord as their very first step in leadership. At Given, we seek to raise the next generation of Catholic female leaders, and that all has to begin with our relationship with the Lord. So there's going to be prayer workshops on Lectio Divina, on Ignatian discernment. Also, I'm really excited. One of our Given alumna, Katie Walterness, is coming back to the forum and giving a prayer workshop on her beautiful practice of praying with sacred art as another way of continuing your spirituality and relationship with the Lord. So it's integrated in every part of our day, and especially since we're surrounded with so many religious sisters, you just can't beat that experience. It's so wonderful to have so many different congregations of women with different charisms, different apostolates, but they are standing there and praying with you and praying over you. And that's something that's so powerful. And you really do see the leadership of women in the church through women religious.
That's such a powerful point, Rachel, because I remember when I was there, we were nearly matched. Participants who were non-religious, non-consecrated, to consecrated, and to see all the habits walking around, to see that this isn't a workshop forum that is one size fits all, but it truly offers options and types of prayer and types of skills and gifts that can be implemented. So if you're interested in learning more, that's Rachel Ullmann that's been with us from the Given Institute. She's the executive director. I participated in Given in the very first one back in 2016. I highly recommend the program. The applications close February 12th. So if you're between the ages of 21 and 30, or you know someone, a young lady who is, please encourage them to apply. Check it out at thegiveninstitute.com. Again, giveninstitute.com. We'll post links at our website on the podcast for today. And I'll be right back with you in just a little bit to talk a little bit about liturgical living, to live liturgically, to find greater joy in your life by celebrating the feast days, and also what we can do to prepare for Lent and to get Lent right this year. Not that you can get it perfectly, but we can do better at preparing ahead of time. I'll be right back here on Trending.
So, what's trending? Bridging your Catholic faith with your everyday life. You're listening to Trending with Timmerie on Relevant Radio and the Relevant Radio app.
I'm back with author, blogger, writer Kendra Tierney. She is going to tell us about celebrating the feast days, incorporating our faith into our day-to-day living. I say so often we have to live liturgically. And then one day someone told me, you need to hear about Kendra Tierney. She's incredible. She has this book titled The Catholic All-Year Compendium, Liturgical Living for Real Life. I highly recommend it. She is quite the guru on social media, so we'll tag her on Instagram. If you have a question about living liturgically, maybe celebrating a particular feast day, you can ask us now by giving us a call at 1-888-914-9149, or you can head over to my Instagram story where I have Kendra tagged, and I have a little question box up there for you to ask your questions. Kendra, welcome to the show. Share with me a little bit about why you find so much joy and have been inspired to incorporate your Catholic faith into your day-to-day life with your family.
Thanks so much for having me, Timmerie. And yeah, it kind of came about for us, just my husband and I, when we started having kids, and we knew that we wanted our Catholic faith to be part of our family culture, part of our home life, and part of the way that we raised our kids. And so we started looking into, how do we manage the hard stuff? How do we get our kids through Mass? How do we sit down and say a family rosary? How do we observe abstinence and fasting days? And so we spent years trying to wrap our heads around figuring that out with little kids. And as I was looking more deeply into it and into, how people manage this as a family, I started discovering these beautiful old traditions of the ways that feast days were celebrated. Not only, the way that fasting days were observed, but the way that feast days were observed in communities, in parishes, in homes. And I realized that's really the fullness of our deposit of faith is, learning to do the hard stuff, but also learning about the joy and the way that these traditions that come back around every year really get us invested in our faith and help give us that Catholic identity.
That's so true, because as you're talking, Kendra, I'm thinking about some of the kind of three things that come to mind that we do as Catholics, or we've seen done and maybe haven't participated in. Corpus Christi procession, the May crowning of Our Lady, and even the tradition of the Easter Vigil, of entering into the church in darkness and bringing our candles in. These elements that are different from the day-to-day norm of Mass stand out in our faith. And so when we bring that into the home and create a practice, it helps create, I imagine, a lot of ownership for your own kids and your family and their faith. And in my eyes, this is why I wanted to talk to you during our happy hour. It brings about a sense of joy that my happiness ultimately goes so much deeper because it's rooted in God. And He is the source of the happiness of these saints who have been martyred, to the saints who have died natural, simple deaths, but with absolute joy on their hearts and their minds. So share with me a little bit more about maybe some of those feast days that have stood out the most to you over the years, and also how your kids have responded and maybe taken ownership of it.
Yeah, and I would absolutely say those three liturgies that you mention, those traditions that you mention, are so important, and those Corpus Christi processions, I think, especially. I mean, what a beautiful way to literally bring what we believe out into the streets, out into the neighborhood around every Catholic parish. And I just, I say that my goal with my blog is to make Catholicism weird again, because that's really, that's what makes it special. That's what makes it different and not just one choice among many. And I think a lot of parents, we all as parents worry about, how can we keep our kids Catholic, because the odds are stacked against you in that. And I think that it's these traditions, and especially when they're, when they're in the home, and ideally when they're part of your larger community as well, I think that makes our faith harder to walk away from.
Because it's become a part of who we are and what we do, not just distant. Right. It's something we do on Sundays. And I think this has been the hurdle that a lot of people have needed to make their way over since COVID has begun, of I'm actually not happy with being a Sunday-only Catholic, or they've hit the point where they go, I guess not going to church doesn't really matter that much to me because I was a Sunday-only Catholic. So we want to fuse that together and make it something that you own, you live, you do every single day, or you're anticipating, so that you're planning ahead for some of the upcoming feasts. So I'd love to hear from you some of those feast days that are maybe your favorite throughout the year, especially as we head into Lent. And we'll talk a little bit about living Lent well, getting it right this year in a bit, but touch on some of those feast days first.
Yeah. And, I always ask if I can just pick a favorite kid instead of a favorite feast day, because, they're so good. But there are some coming up that are some of really our the most enjoyable for us, because they are in Lent. And we really make a point of making Lent feel different in our home, and that we, it is noticeable to us that it's Lent. And so when we relax that a little bit for the feast days, they're just so memorable and fun. So the Feast of St. Joseph is such a good one to observe this year, if you for anybody who hasn't in the past, because it is the year of St. Joseph this year. The Pope Francis gave us this year to sort of delve a little bit more into the spirituality of St. Joseph, which is a beautiful thing. And it's a solemnity, and it's on a Friday in Lent, which means it's a meat Friday. And even though it's a Friday in Lent, we can eat meat. But we do this fun tradition that I got from a good friend of mine in high school, whose family ran an Italian restaurant, and their big thing for celebrations, not specifically St. Joseph, but any sort of big get together, was pasta on the table. And she would just boil up all these, spaghetti noodles. She would oil up a big wooden slab, which I do not do that. I just give the table kind of a scouring. But then she would just dump the big pot of noodles right in the middle of the table, all the way down it, in between all these, teenagers on the cross-country team or our youth group or something. And we would, you could use fork if you wanted to, but mostly we would just eat it with our hands. And so I have incorporated that into our family traditions, and with the St. Joseph twist of he worked with his hands, so we eat dinner with our hands. And it is very memorable for kids. You don't have to do the hands part, but kids like that.
Okay, so tell me though, because that's very creative. That's very creative, and especially for little kids, teaching them something. And some people say, like, what does that have to do exactly with faith? It might be far-fetched, but actually little kids go, oh, I learned about St. Joseph, and they will always remember he worked with his hands and have that connection to him as years go by.
Right, and what my whole sort of method of this liturgical living in the home is a dinner table sort of based system. So I do these
Love that.
fun foods that are sometimes associated, traditionally with the country or something, but it just sets the stage for that conversation around the table where we learn about the saint's life and how we can, learn from him and emulate him.
This is a really good point, because one of the things that has stood out during COVID is that a lot of people have said, I'm appreciating for the first time sitting down to eat a meal or sitting down with my loved ones, my family, to eat a meal. This has been something that has been lost. It is so fundamental to our Catholic faith. We break bread together at church every single Sunday, or more often if you go to daily mass. And it's a fundamental part of communal living, of participating in that meal together, to check in, to see each other's faces, to delight in the foods and the flavors all around us. So St. Joseph's feast day, we've got to go to hand-eaten pasta. What are some of your other favorites, and how have they resonated with your kids?
So another one coming up during Lent is on March 25th is the Feast of the Annunciation. And this one isn't one that I the St. Joseph one, that tradition exists, but not specifically necessarily for St. Joseph. But for the Feast of the Annunciation, you are supposed to eat waffles. That is a traditional Catholic practice, because it's some linguistic thing where in Swedish, the word for Ladies' Day, for Our Lady's Day, sounds similar to Waffle Day. So it's Waffelsdagen. And if you go on, if you look at that hashtag on Instagram or something on March 25th, people all over Europe are eating waffles on March 25th. They don't even necessarily know why. They don't know that it's associated with the Annunciation. But if you want to score points with your kids, you serve them breakfast for dinner. And so, this could be toaster waffles, or it can be out to dinner for waffles, or it can be homemade waffles, which is my favorite, but just because it gets us all in the kitchen together.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
Do what you can. Okay, so I love
it's super fun and memorable.
Yeah. Okay. So I love what you're saying. And I have a friend who was recently married, and he was over at our house hanging out with my husband and I, and he was bragging about how his wife has been celebrating the various feast days in the house, from St. Nicholas feast day to St. Clair's, you name it. And I kept thinking, she must be living by your book. And I'll just say this, he is eating it up, literally. So gentlemen, buy this book for your wives, because I think that this is an opportunity not only to celebrate as a couple if you don't have kids yet, and to kind of make it a little more memorable to learn about the saints, but also to help your kids dig in and to have fond memories of their faith that they will always look back on. Her books, the Catholic All Year Compendium, I've tagged her on Instagram, so you can find her. Just head over to my Instagram. If you want to connect with me, if you're not yet, head over to relevantradio.com/trending. But Kendra, we're going to come back in just a minute here to talk about continuing to live liturgically. But this time we've got just a little bit more time before Lent. And I want to discuss getting Lent right this year and thinking about it before it happens so that we can really live through this liturgical season. I'll be right back with my guest, Kendra Tierney, here on Trending with Timmerie. Catholic Order of Foresters is proud to sponsor the Relevant Radio studio line. For information about employment opportunities and flexible premium life insurance plans, visit relevantradio.com/Forester.
Bridging your Catholic faith with your everyday life. You're listening to Trending with Timmerie on Relevant Radio and the Relevant Radio app.
Can you believe it? We are already approaching Lent. It kicks off next week. And we want to help you on your Lenten journey with Father Rocky's Lenten lessons on the Mass, actually. When you sign up for Father Rocky's Lenten lessons, you'll receive a daily email where Father will walk you through the different parts of the Mass And in each lesson, you can read or listen to Father give a detailed explanation of certain aspects of our beautiful liturgy. Plus, you'll also receive a daily bonus video to accompany each Lenten lesson, with Father Rocky giving you a behind-the-scenes and more detailed look at the different parts of the Mass. The first Lenten lesson will be sent out Ash Wednesday, February 17th. Mark it on your calendar. So sign up now by clicking on the banner on the Relevant Radio app, which I know you're listening on the Relevant Radio app. That's where you listen to Trending with Timmerie on demand. It's where you share the podcast with your friends. We had a great show on Friday, especially for women and young women. So go download the app now or head over to relevantradio.com where you can connect with the Lenten lessons. There's a banner there where you can sign up for these daily doses that you need to help build up what you're getting to know about your faith. Remember, prayer, fasting, and almsgiving, we want to give things up so that we can take more in from our faith. And so this is one way to take more in this Lent. With me today is Kendra Tierney talking about liturgical living. And Kendra, I want to talk about getting Lent right this year. You have so many tips in your book that are so helpful, from simple ways to start building up those Lenten practices to greater challenges. But before we get there, please share your Fat Tuesday celebration in your home and what that looks like.
Yeah, it's all part of that balance that we were talking about before, right? That if you want to observe Lent as that real, time of abstinence and penance and prayer, you got to kick it off with something that's memorable. And so we really observe Fat Tuesday in our house, in addition to the voluntary Lenten disciplines that everybody decides on for themselves and takes something up or gives something up. We have family Lent practices where we don't eat treats except on Sundays, and we don't do screens except for TV and video games except for on Sundays. So on Fat Tuesday, we get all the treats in the house and just sort of put them all on the counter. And that means everybody's secret stashes and the stuff up in the counter and birthday cake that I froze, and everything just comes out. And we make these really weird ice cream sundaes where the kids just sort of pile everything all together, and we eat a crazy ice cream sundae and we watch a movie together. And we really, that last hurrah, because then we know the next day is, it's time to get serious and observe Lent.
There was something you said earlier, Kendra, when we were talking about making Lent feel different in your home than the rest of the year. Can you speak to why, in our faith, we don't want to overemphasize the feeling and the emotional side of things, but it's an important dimension, especially during those developmental years in the faith. Can you speak to the importance of creating proper atmosphere and feeling for your children, even for yourself, in that spiritual journey of growth?
Yeah, I do think that it's really important because we are spirit and body. And so things that get through to us from our senses really add meaning to our lives. And I think that moms with younger kids spend a lot of time in the home. And my goodness, this year we are all spending more time in the home. And so one way to make Lent more meaningful is to observe Lent through our sort of decor and to create visual reminders that it's Lent. And it really does help me to remember my voluntary Lenten disciplines when I see that our little home altar table has a purple cloth on it, or I've put some burlap on the mantle and some little cacti and pots and rocks. And, it's not the most important thing in our practice of the faith, but to me, it really just is that reminder that, in our environment that reminds us that this is a different season. And, oh yeah, I'm really trying to focus on this thing in my faith life. I'm trying not to yell at my kids. I'm trying to spend more time in prayer. And, seeing that those visual reminders is really helpful for that.
It's so helpful, I think, to have that, and people don't realize how important decor actually is. And when you change your decor, it kind of wakes you up to what's happening in your environment. Yet sometimes it's not explained to kick off, and so we miss the meaning of it. And so having that to be taught in the home, it helps teach about the liturgical changes in the Mass, the colors, the vestments the priest's wearing, what it represents. And I think that's a really neat way to teach catechesis without kind of pounding it over your kid's head as well.
Right. And, I think especially with kids, when you're trying to do things differently for a season, there's a lot of, questions about how much longer we have to do this and was I really serious about it? And, but to have those reminders for them, we also do a little, clip art calendar on the wall that started off, I call it a clip art calendar because it started off literally as me like going around on Word and printing out a page of various sort of deserty themed pictures. And now I have a printable set that I've created that's a little more professional looking that I made for my kids. That you can see it on my in the shop on my blog, but it's just 40 little, well, actually 46, because there's ones for Sundays too. Just little images that are up on the wall in the kitchen. And that way they can take one off every day and count down and see how much longer it is until you can, until they can watch TV in the afternoons again, until they can have treats again. But again, it's just sort of, that's an important part of making our environment a little bit different.
It's such a joy to be Catholic, and even during the Lenten season when we're called to prayer, fasting, and almsgiving, it's joyful because it's creating a transformation in us. We are detaching from everything that we ought to detach from so that we can attach to the one person we should truly be attached to. And that's something that I discussed a lot leading into Advent, that we need to kind of take stock. What do I need to detach from in order to attach properly to God? So for you, Kendra, you're a mother of 10 kids. There's so many things that happen day in and day out. What have been some of your favorite Lenten practices personally that have helped you detach from what you need to detach from in order to create a better attachment to your faith and to God and toward that true purpose and end that we have in mind of the beatific vision?
Yeah, and I think that it's, for mothers, it's easy to have our focus always be on our kids, and that Lent is a good time to take stock and think, what should I be doing in my faith life? And the thing that has been most meaningful over the long term for me is to take some quiet time in prayer before the rest of the family is up. And it's sort of all dependent on ages, and if you're pregnant or if you have a new baby, that it doesn't necessarily work for me. But when I'm able to do that, that's to just really start my day with some quiet and some focus. And I'm usually able to start that up again in Lent and take it more seriously if it's started to fall by the wayside because of other obligations and stuff. But to have that time where I'm, focused not on myself, not on my family, but on my relationship with Jesus is helps me to be a better mom the rest of the day.
Quick question, Kendra, because this has been a new season in my life for me, having been pregnant during most of last year and now having a newborn, and making Lenten or Advent sacrifices, fasting. You're kind of in a whole new ballgame with nursing and the amount of food you need. So what kind of go-tos do you have for women who are pregnant, who are nursing, and they're having a hard time maybe making their usual sacrifices or trying to be creative?
Right. And I think that, you don't want to undertake I think that talking to a spiritual director is always a really, really good idea when you're deciding what to give up and take up for Lent, because I think it's easy for us as individuals to, either take it too easy or too hard on ourselves, to focus on the wrong things. And I think that I at least have a tendency to take things that to take sort of the sacrificial things, but that come more easily to me, and just really go hard on those. Rather than, I've had spiritual directors who've recommended things that are really creative and different, and even, and just sometimes that seem really small, but can be really meaningful because they require a mindfulness of, often as they come up during the day. But when I'm not able to do food-based sacrifices, I mean, stepping away from my phone, stepping away from social media, stepping away from things that are sort of that distraction crutch. And that's something that, you talk about Lent as being a positive and a source of joy in a family. It really can be that, because if it's that time, if it's a time where you can force yourself and your family to detox a little bit from all these crutches, these things that keep us occupied and distracted and separated from each other a little bit. And when we take away the availability of video games and TV, then what are we going to do? Well, we have to sit down together and read a book aloud, or play a board game, or, do a craft or bake something. And so we'll find different ways to fill the time, and those can create some really beautiful memories.
That's Kendra Tierney. You can find her at CatholicAllYear.com. We'll tag her on social media. You can find her. I've tagged her on my Instagram page. You can find me at Timmerie, or head over to relevantradio.com/trending, where we have links on the notes to social media and her website as well. Thanks for joining us, Kendra. We look forward to discussing Lent more with you and the other liturgical seasons soon. Pick up her book, The Catholic All Year Compendium. Listen, you're with us during our weekly happy hour, and there was this article that came out from specifically a Harvard professor talking about 5 things that are free that you can do to make you happier. And they're 5 really simple activities. I'm going to share them with you now because they're so simple, they're literally stupid. And the most creative of all of them, if you're someone who works and maybe you're bad at taking a vacation, it's going to help you with that. It's so simple. So here's the first one. Organizing your errands, taking 5 minutes to just sit down, whether it's daily, at the beginning of your week. I know I like to work on my schedule and what I need to get done. I love to do that massive dump at the end of the day so that I feel ready for the next day. And I've just gotten it off my chest, make a resolution of like, okay, I'm resolved to the fact that I didn't get X done today. And I'm resolved to the fact that I have to do Y tomorrow. And maybe that Y is taxes or something you really hate doing. If you prepare yourself for it ahead of time, you will be better prepared. And one of my producers, Lucas, is nodding his head as I mentioned taxes because, oh gosh, I'm that person who waits till the last couple of days to do it because I think it's this awful task. And then it ends up being not so bad. Unless my husband likes to talk at the same time. I'm one of those people who can't really multitask. So don't make me talk and study or do anything else at the same time. But organize your errands. Take the time to do it. It helps to reduce procrastination and it helps you to feel a little less stressed. Second, I think that this is a great one. It's being connected with other people. That is, message someone important to you. Takes just a couple minutes, saying hello, making that touch of contact, especially when some people feel very isolated, whether it's that you're reaching out to them because you know they feel isolated, or maybe you're reaching out because you miss this person. You love this person. You want to continue to build a relationship and a friendship with them, but it's so easy to forget. So maybe you can add this, whether it's to your weekly schedule or even your daily schedule, that you've made contact with someone important to you in your life. Okay, this one has to do with going on vacation. This is so silly. Again, it's stupid, but it's helpful for bringing a greater sense of happiness in our life. And it's to check your vacation day balance regularly. This is brilliant. Who actually thinks about how many vacation days they have regularly and actually begins to think about what is and is not reasonable for their vacation as the year goes on. So it's February, and maybe you would love to go to Hawaii, somewhere tropical. Maybe you've always wanted to go to Rome. However, you know, at the beginning of the year, it's a possibility. But then June hits, you maybe only taken 1 or 2 vacation days. Maybe you kind of wasted them on something you wish you hadn't. And you can't quite afford what you would hope for, but you can plan something else. Or you can save for at the beginning or end of next year to make that trip you've always wanted to make. But then to do the right thing and use your vacation time wisely in the meantime. So check your vacation day balance. And even if you don't have vacation days, maybe you're retired, maybe you work from home, perhaps you are a stay-at-home mom, you're taking care of your kids, plan those times away. Next, I think this one's really stupid, but I'm going to spin it. It says to watch a relaxing nature video for 10 minutes a day. This is dumb. Please just go outside. Like, there are studies that apparently this reduces the feeling of fatigue and anger and stress. Go outside, people. Look at the beautiful tree. I mean, breathe in the fresh air. Do we really need a video in order to make us happier? Go for a walk. Come on, it's simple. So let's just be a little less stupid and do some of these simple free activities to be happier. The final one, and it doesn't just have to be a lady that does this. Guys can do this too. It doesn't just have to be all fluffy. Write a journal entry every day, 10 minutes. The reality is that so many studies are coming out saying that it helps you to gain a sense of control over yourself and your emotions. It helps you to process your day, work toward your goals, grow in your faith. Maybe you're just journaling and you're speaking to our Lord. Take those 10 minutes for yourself to become stronger, happier, and more peaceful. So use these 5 simple steps to be happier. I'll be back with you on Wednesday. Dr. Stacy Trasenkos will be here tomorrow, and I'm so excited. Wednesday, we have a lieutenant colonel joining us, and we're going to be talking about video games and some other awesome things.